That's the wrong one. There we go. I was like, oh, I hit the wrong button. And then I did hit it. Yeah, I hit the wrong. I was like, I'm gonna hit the wrong button, and then I saved it, and then I hit the wrong button anyway because I'm stupid. Yes, because I got the acronyms mixed up in my head again.
Oh boy.
I was like, oh, see, yeah, that one. No, not that one, not that one. Welcome on in here to what's that?
The buttons are hard.
I mean, there's a lot of them right here. I mean, I could hit any one of them. Welcome to our episode tonight of Tome of Knowledge. That's the right show that we're doing tonight. I'm Max. I'm here with Virtual Spectre and Moves Like Jagger from the GGN crew.
Hello.
It's us. And Moobs. And Max. I don't know what I'm saying.
It's like, I already said those. Virtual Spectre. If that is your real name. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, who are you? Really?
Who am I really?
We're not going to get into Out of Combat.
Yeah, we're definitely not. Watch Out of Combat, though, on Thursday. For sure. With that being said, hope everyone's having a fantastic Monday or Moon Day if you're from the broken continent of Erebos. And you're tuning in from my fantasy setting. Anyway, tonight we're going to be talking about the top 5 best worst ways for your character to die in D&D.
Yeah. I'm excited to hear what you guys came up with.
I have the best list. I already know.
Probably do. I feel like DMs just have a list on hand of monsters and ways that monster is going to kill a player.
Yep.
They don't really come up that often, though.
Player
Like,
deaths?
the worst. Well, player deaths happen, but like the worst player death, but it's fucking shit.
Yes, Zeus will do 555 and then 444. You put it falling down a hole in a tower that's 100 plus stories tall. Yeah, that would be terrible. So, hope everyone's having a great evening. Do you want to go ahead and get started on this and go just do it? Let's get into it.
Just do it.
I'm gonna pick Moobs. You're first.
Damn it. Every time.
I thought I was like, I'm gonna pick VS. I was like, wait, was VS first last time? I guess I'll pick Moobs, and I guess it wasn't.
Every time. No, it's fine. Totally fine. Because I think I'm gonna start. I stole this one from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, which only shows up in that system. And there's a feature or a mechanic called System Shock. If you're not familiar with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, AD&D, what System Shock is, if your character is so shocked by what they see or experience or whatever, they have to make a con check. And if they fail, they die from shock.
That reminds me of like Sanity for like Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that. We're like, like, oh, can't take it, dead.
How does so how does a character get, like, what is there prerequisites for this? Like, does the character have to be exhausted, or like?
I think it's just something that's so shocking to your character. Like, I'll just make an example that you and your adventuring party walk into a tavern, and this might get a little morbid, but you open the door and there's bodies everywhere and there's blood, and you see a demon for the very first time. So your character is thus shocked by the sight of this thing. They have to make a constitution roll, and if they fail, they die from shock. It could happen. I think it might be a DM call, or the player's call to, like, what is so shocking to a player character that causes them to die. And So say you die from shock, for example, right? Miraculously, you get a resurrection spell, and you come back to life. You are shocked that you came back to life, so you may have to roll another system shock save
No.
because you're so shocked that you came back to life that you may die again. That is possible.
I think another example of using like the great old ones, like Cthulhu mythos, of like seeing, like coming face to face with one of those entities as opposed to just turn your brains into scrambled eggs, basically. And you can die from that.
I think you can be in like a loop of constantly being shocked and being resurrected over and over again. This is like super lich or demon stuff. Like if they wanted to trap your soul, this is how they would do it. I don't know. I think that's pretty funny that that mechanic actually exists in AD&D. I don't know. I never heard stories.
Shock.
Technically, it's only for physical trauma. Okay, thank you, Zeus. Zeus would know.
You get slapped by Cthulhu. That seems shocking. Yeah,
like polymorphed, you get turned to stone, they turn you back to flesh, just like series of
like your character loses a limb or something.
Yeah, you get an arm blown off. You get your arm stuck in a wall because you teleported incorrectly.
Ooh.
Yeah, that I've never played AD&D, and I don't think I want to.
Seems pretty brutal.
I played it once. It was interesting, but I think we had fun.
Thank you.
So that's my 1 of 5.
5. I'll go next. My number 5 is a very classic trope in D&D, which I think might date back to AD&D even before. And my number 5 of the best worst ways for your character to die in D&D is the classic DM rocks fall, everyone dies. The classic of you've pissed off your DM and you're being super dumb and they're done with your shit. Rocks fall, everyone dies. They're taking their ball and going home.
Yeah.
And doing some research in Tomb of Horrors, the original one in 1975, there was one of the places to get into that dungeon where, and I did some reading, and this is me paraphrasing, I haven't actually played the module, of one of the entrances, you could die before even getting into the dungeon, where if the players walk in, the ceiling could collapse on them. It's basically a trap. And from what I read is the DM just starts counting out loud to 10. And if the players don't do anything to alleviate the situation, then the ceiling caves in on them and then rocks fall, everyone dies.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is terrible way to go and end the session in the very beginning of the session.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the classic, the cliche of I don't want to DM this game anymore. I'm taking my ball and going home, so fuck all y'all. Rocks fall, everyone dies. See you later.
What do you even do at that point? Like, do you just say like, do we
learn from your mistake and don't piss off the DM again?
do we load a save point?
Yeah. The answer to your question is, what can you do? Nothing. There's nothing you can do. Yeah, that is a good point. A lot of those early adventures, like what this is saying, were written by Gygax to defeat players, not to defeat characters. The game has evolved since then, for sure. But yeah, that's my number 5. Rocks fall, everyone dies. Classic. VS, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is something that hits very close to home. And we can debate about whether it counts or not. Petrification. Technically not dying. However, for all intents and purposes, you are dead.
Yes.
But just the idea of being turned to stone and you're aware of every second of it in the darkness of your brain, you are just trapped.
I will say,
and you can't do anything.
I will say the being aware, I think that's a me thing and not necessarily a rules as written thing.
Okay. Well, either way, you're as good as dead.
Yes, you are effectively dead.
Assuming like, you know, your party can't heal you or whatever. You are just wherever you were. You're a monument that's gonna be there till the end of time.
A monument to your party's failure for all of time.
And your failed dice rolls.
Then
Yeah.
someone hires a moving company and move your statue and accidentally drop you. And
Game over.
then,
You have to do
then
some
you're
really
dead,
high
man.
powerful stuff to get you back.
So yeah, pretty hits close to home. We can debate on whether that's actually a death, but it might as well be. And not a fun one.
The plus side though of having the petrified condition is you cease aging. That's written in there, so
Aren't you immune to crits as well?
no.
Hmm.
No, you have
I feel
resistance
like,
to all damage.
yeah, it would just take something strong enough to break you, I guess.
Yeah. How's it going, Rage Mage?
Rage Mage.
All right, recap all of our fives. Those were good ones. I like that. I'm sorry that number 5 was so close to home for you. Yeah, ready for number 4?
Yeah, we can keep going.
Let's recap. Why not? We don't have any rules here. So
That's
number
true.
5 was, we'll start. Moves, your number 5 was
dying from shock.
System shock.
A mechanic from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Mine was the classic rocks fall, everyone dies. And then VS is number 5.
2 rock related deaths.
Yeah, I know, right?
Number 5.
I can give you another rock if you want for number 4. My number 4.
Oh, your number 4. Go for it.
Yeah. So this is from my own personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably not the best, worst way to die, but it definitely hurt me deep, cut me deep. Where, for context, this was my own player character, and I think we had ourselves to blame because we have a homebrew rule where, and this was 3.5. This wasn't 4th or 5th edition.
Oh, here we
So
go.
if you roll
3.5 again.
I know. So if you roll a nat 20, and the way you back up criticals in 3.5 is you have to roll, once you roll a 20, you crit, but you have to confirm a crit. So you have to roll a d20 again with your attack modifier and back up said crit with to hit the target
confirmations
or higher confirmation. So in our system, our homebrew system, if you roll 2 nat 20s in a row and you confirm the second nat 20, that is an instant death. Like your character just dies, like gone. Nothing can stop it. All right. So in this our campaign, I made like this super badass, a lot of homebrew stuff. So I was like a half golem monk, super beefy dude, and we just finished gathering, like unite the clans, right? We gathered all the armies, and we're gonna have this massive war against another warring nation. And as soon as the battle starts, and my character is super fast, like going like 70 feet around, and I am charging, and a catapult fires, and I get hit by said catapult, giant rock, and insta kills my character. And after all that planning and all the strategery and getting everything in place to have this epic battle, I die in the first round by catapult and missed out on the entire battle. I spent the whole rest of the session making a new character.
So instead of rocks fall, everyone dies. For you, it was rock falls and you die.
And only I.
I'm just visualizing like
what
this heroic figure leading the charge ahead of everyone else and gets just totally obliterated by a rock.
Morale took a big blow that night.
I mean, that is true. It's a good point in chat, is that a catapult should have killed you. If you take a direct hit from a catapult, it should kill you. I mean, fair is fair there, but
yeah. We're talking about D&D here, so
yeah. Rage, I like Rage number 5. A single chain lightning taking out the entire party. our
Beautiful.
campaign
Yep.
2 party, you guys had a little bit of taste of some lightning bolt when a lot of y'all nice and neatly lined up for that enemy.
We did.
Yeah.
That shit ain't no joke. Good number 4. That's a very unique one. Just catapult first round of combat. Okay. You ready for my number 4?
Yeah, let's hear it.
My number 4 is a single rot grub, not a swarm of rot grubs, which is a monster in D&D 5th edition. On the entry of Swarm of Rot Grubs, it says that you can also just run a single rot grub. It has no stat block whatsoever. It's just one little worm. But if you come in contact with this worm and you fail a DC 10 con saving throw, you're poisoned. And the little wormy worms its way into your character. And you take 1d6 poison damage at the end of each of the rot grub's turns. If you go down to 0 hit points, you die because of this little worm. If it could just poison you down all the way to 0, and then you're dead. You're done. After it burrows, the only way to keep making saves is for your character to take fire damage, and then you can make a save. So I'm just imagining not a swarm of them, not an enemy you can fight. It's just one, has no stat block, and it just so happens to come in contact with you, and then you fail your save.
Wait, like you can't even do something like restoration on that?
No, you're just poisoned by this little creature that's burrowed into you, and you just keep taking poison damage every single turn until you go down to 0. And the only time you can make the save again is if you take fire damage.
Wow.
Yeah. Imagine one little guy, and that's game over. Just nickel and diming you all the way down to the end.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah, that would be an awful way to go. Just an average of 3 hit points at a time.
All right. That doesn't sound very nice.
No.
So for my 4th one, I came across a creature when looking at monsters. I think it's a magical creature. Okay. It is the Rug of Smothering.
I think that you fought one of those in first campaign.
Yes. Here's why. It's not necessarily like the toughest thing, but I just imagine a scenario where your party's coming up to some building and you send in the rogue to check things out. The rogue enters the wrong room, gets attacked by a smothering, fails. I don't remember if there's like a save involved or if it just hits you, it begins smothering you.
If you get hit by it, it grapples you. Yeah. And then it just starts to get smothered.
And you just die to a rug and your friends are outside and they don't know it. Like how it's such a terrible way to go. Being suffocated slowly by a rug. That's my 4th one.
Magical rug. What's really interesting is that I don't know if you all have noticed, I have noticed that there's been a couple times on the maps that I use for the campaigns. Sometimes there's rugs there. Sometimes I add rugs there. And you all don't usually tell the difference. And now there's been instances where rugs could lead to a secret passage, or the rug could try and smother you. So I'm wondering if you will ever trust rugs again.
I don't like it.
Well, now I know to look for rugs on the map.
Some maps I put them there and they're just nice. They're just nice rugs.
There's a lot of times where we'll be on a map and a lot of things, unless it's clearly like a token or something, I assume it's just part of the scenery.
Yeah, it's by design.
Yeah. So you could probably easily get my character by just having stuff around that looks normal.
Hmm. Yeah. All right. Number threes.
Number 3, and it's along the lines of what Rage Mage just said. It's a spell in D&D. We all know it. We all love it. We love casting it. Called Disintegrate.
Ah.
And if you are brought to 0 hit points, for those who don't know, by this spell, you that is what the spell says. You are disintegrated. You turn into a pile of ash, and the only way to get you back is through a true resurrection, which is unless you have a super high level cleric in your party or an exuberant amount of funds, there's very little ways of coming back from that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know there was a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But good
Not
news,
many.
magical items are not affected. Just everything else.
Just the person carrying them. Got it.
Awesome. So we can just loot your ash pile
Yeah,
for your
Yep.
stuff.
right.
Only
Just
clerics and druids, and
scoop
it's a
'em up.
9th level spell,
Yeah, that's a big one.
which is interesting because the way that I like to play, like NPCs that are like have classes and like class levels that I took from Zeus's book of like I start at the top, like, okay, a level 20 wizard. There's probably one on the entire planet. Level 2, there might be 2 of them. Or sorry, level 8 or sorry, level 20, level 19 there might be 2, level 18 there might be, 4. Give or take some depending on the setting. So the chances of finding someone who could do that, that's like a whole thing in itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one though.
Fun asks if she has a magic tattoo. Is she a magic item? I feel
No.
like just the flesh where the tattoo is would be there. Just the flesh. Everything else is gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it's the
Imagine that.
Impal. I don't know.
You loot strip of flesh.
The way the
It's like
tattoos work is they're like basically they go back into the tattoo gun if they're like unequipped, basically.
really?
Essence floats
A
back
little
into
magic
the
needle.
harvest's gun. Oh.
Huh.
Yeah, because you can like that's how you apply it is like with the little needle stuff. Okay. My number 3 is also a spell. Surprise,
Mm.
surprise.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna say that my number 3 is one of Ron's favorite spells that were cast against him. And it's gonna be heat metal.
Oh.
Heat metal, best worst way to go. Number 3 for me. And if you are a character who wears heavy armor in D&D 5th edition, the amount of time to take off a suit of heavy armor, I think the don and doff is like what? Or take it off is 5 minutes. Yeah, taking it off is 5 minutes. If you're in combat, that's too long. Heat metal lasts for a minute, and then you take 2d8 fire damage every turn. And all the caster does is just cast their bonus action or use their bonus action to reapply it again.
Boy.
Yeah, so it will that spell if you're wearing heavy armor, even most like medium armors, you're in a bad way because there's nothing you can do about it except maybe hope to break their concentration or dispel it. So yeah, but yeah, that one's
Yeah.
a tank, a paladin killer for sure, or any
Yeah.
heavy armor people because
Getting roasted alive.
Because
Doesn't
how long
sound
does
great.
it take to undon full plate?
5 minutes.
So you're just burning for 5 minutes.
The spell only lasts a minute, which is 10 rounds of combat. So if you think of like 2d8 fire damage, so you're looking at 4.5, 9 points of damage on average for 10 rounds if they don't upcast it.
And if you're a sorcerer and you take a meta magic to extend the duration.
Sure, yeah. If you're multi-classed, you could do that.
Now, could a character with a spell, I don't know if it's a spell or a cantrip, create water? Is there something like that?
I mean, there is, but
Do they
it
help with that?
doesn't do anything with this because it's not a fire. I mean,
It's
I don't
not
know.
a fire, but
That would be an interesting interaction, but it's not like it's just hot. Like the armor's not hot. It's like magically hot, right?
I see.
So you pour water on it, it turns into steam. But yeah,
Gotcha.
pretty much the only way out of that is you can't get your armor off in time. Is you start whacking that spellcaster to break their concentration, or you have a buddy cast dispel magic on your armor.
That's true, Rage Mage.
Yeah, with great water, you're just boiling yourself. You're like a jeez.
All right.
I was gonna say it's like you're like a lobster, like the frog, who's just they're in the pot getting boiled. All right, number 3 for you, VS.
Classic.
Uh-huh.
Very much a classic. And that is being slowly dissolved by a slime, an ooze, or a gelatinous cube. Classic, classic. But one of the worst ways it's gotta be. Like, because you're feeling every agonizing second of it. And even if you somehow escape, there's still the potential to, like, your leg has melted off, or your arm is melted off, or half your body is melted off.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Pretty nasty.
It is a slow death according to the monster manual. So, fun times. Fun times. Up to number 2?
We're on number 2.
Okay, number 2. There's a lot of sampled diseases in Dungeons and Dragons. And I guess it's not exactly dying.
That's the one rule. That's the one rule we had. I'm kidding.
I mean, it's essentially dying because if you're a player and this happens to you, then you're basically done. It's called Cackle Fever.
Oh.
And for some reason gnomes are immune to it for whatever reason. So
they find nothing funny.
Yeah. They find and if you're affected by cackle fever, it's basically you're incapacitated for 1 minute, take some psychic damage with mad laughter, which it's basically like Tasha's hideous laughter, but the disease version of it. And you lose a level of exhaustion. So I guess theoretically, if you are on your last level of exhaustion and you fail your save, you could die laughing.
Reminds me of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yes. But here's the thing with cackling fever. If you fail to save and you're laughing, and anyone within 10 feet of infected creature in the throes of mad laughter, they also need to make a Constitution save, or they become infected by the disease of cackle fever, and then your whole party and maybe your enemies, everyone's just laughing their ass off, taking psychic damage. This can be cleansed by I believe you can cleanse it with a lesser restoration.
I don't know if lesser resto takes care of diseases.
Not diseases?
I know Paladin Lay on Hands does.
That is true. Nope, you're right. Lesser, not even lesser fixes diseases. Oh no, you can touch a creature and either one disease or a condition afflicting it.
Ah, okay.
That's level 2 spell. can cure this. But if everyone's infected with madness laughter, and if you fail your save 3 times, then the madness becomes indefinite.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. For such as something that can be cleansed by a level 2 spell, if you fail your save 3 times, yeah, it is a permanent madness. So that's
Oh, yeah.
essentially your character is essentially gone.
That's well, I mean, for as long as you can last the psychic damage, right? How long does that last?
I think it's just a one-time deal. You take 1d10 psychic damage.
Yeah, I forgot Lesser Restoration has that one disease or other conditions. I always forget about
Yeah.
the one disease.
At the end of each long rest, you can make a Constitution save.
Well, that sucks. Diseases are
Pretty
rough.
crazy disease. That's one thing I don't know a lot about in D&D is like what sort of ailments are in the game? Because it's not something you normally come across. At least we haven't really. Is like being afflicted by diseases.
I shied away from it as a DM just because when we started playing, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and I did not want to put that in the game.
Yeah,
people getting sick and shit like that. I was like, no, I'm gonna sidestep around that shit. Like, I don't care. Yeah,
I probably a good idea.
They're not fun. I think we had one briefly in campaign 1 towards the end, which we were a few years out from when we started, and that was in the one of the dwarven areas.
It was, yeah, that's right. It was
Emberholm. Was that it?
Yeah. We were on the other side of the continent.
I don't remember what the disease was.
It's okay. You had a paladin. I knew you could handle it. All right.
Did a lot of cleansing. Yep.
My number 2. We're on number 2. I didn't miscount. My number 2 is a tiny little fiend known as a Vargwheel. And what's interesting about a Vargwheel is they are basically a humanoid head. Instead of ears, they're like bat wings, and they fly around. And they can target a humanoid and target them with what's called Abyssal Curse. And the target has to succeed on a charisma saving throw, DC 12, or they become cursed. And the cursed person loses 1 point of charisma every hour. And after every hour, the person's head starts taking on more fiendish aspects. They grow horns, they might have like tentacles come out of their chin, like a bunch of weird stuff. And when the target's charisma becomes 2, they die. And their head detaches from their body. Their ears extend into little bat wings, and they become a Vargwheel themselves.
That sucks.
I see.
So if the person is in sunlight or in the daylight spell effect area, the time doesn't count. So that's how they can like buy time to stay in the sun or have daylight cast on them. The only way to deal with it is either remove curse or greater restoration before the transformation's complete, and then it'll end the curse, and then it reverses all like the physical aspects. But otherwise, yeah. And the kicker is that they target something that's incapacitated to do this, but they have an ability called Stunning Streak that incapacitates people. So they Stunning Streak, and then you become frightened, which also has an extra thing of being stunned, which means you're incapacitated. And then they can just do this curse and make you roll a charisma save. And yep, after however many hours, you turn into a little bat head looking thing.
That's not nice.
Not fun.
I was looking up images of it, and man, like you can get creative with it because if they were former people's heads, then they could still have some features of who
Oh
that
yeah,
person used to
absolutely.
be, beards, hairstyle.
And
Yeah.
Zeus, I said that you mentioned them it being a kiss. It used to be, they changed it to where it's just a curse now, which makes sense to me. Now they just curse them. They just
I
boop their
suppose
noses together, boop, and you're cursed. I don't know. All right, what's your number 2, VS?
it's time for my number 2. This is it's a thing that probably every campaign has experienced, maybe. But mine is a specific circumstance for this. That's falling to one's death. However,
Hmm.
the manner in which it happens can make it one of the best worst ways.
Mm-hmm.
So picture this scenario. You're a party, you're level 14, 15, you're in the final stretches of your campaign. You've located the big bad's lair, the tower, could be some powerful wizard or lich. Your party is forced to climb up to said tower, either via cliff or on the building itself. You're gonna have to make some checks. Imagine in the final closing sessions of your D&D campaign, you're prepared, you're ready to go, you've got your spells, and you fail a check right before you get to the big boss, and your character plummets to their death. It's hard for me to picture a more deflating way to die. Especially if it's been a long campaign, and if you're,
Mm-hmm.
around that level, it's probably been a long campaign, and you're ready for your heroic moment against the big bad, and it never comes. It's kinda similar to moves with the stone thing, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
falling to one's death in a very specific scenario would be just an awful way to go.
All right. Climbing kits. Use them, folks. Use those adventuring gear. They help. That's exactly what a climber's kit's for. I will say, if you're a level 14 character and you have the hubris to scale a cliff, free climber style, then that's your own damn fault.
Hey, could be the only way to do it.
Every discerning adventurer should have their adventures pack full of things like a climber's kit or some pitons or a crowbar, 10-foot pole, all that stuff.
Or have somebody that can cast fly.
Or featherfall for that matter.
Featherfall, fly.
Yeah. Yeah, they just don't even have those spells prepared.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this is assuming all those things are at play somehow,
Yeah.
and you still find a way to fall.
Yeah, that could be terrible. Yeah, you're a wizard, you're climbing, you're struggling, and you fall. You're like, oh, I didn't prepare featherfall or fly
You
or
had to equip
levitate
your
or
hardest hitting spells to take down the big bad guy.
yeah.
You forgot Featherfall.
Oh man, that's I couldn't even imagine. All right, we up to our number ones.
Mm-hmm.
Top 5 best worst ways to die in D&D.
So, my number 1, I kind of made up a scenario, and it probably
Sure.
doesn't exist in Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, you
So
failed the prompt.
if that doesn't meet the criteria, I have a backup.
It's your list, man. You can do
I
whatever you
know.
want.
So I think um it's a thing that probably never comes up in D&D or um but you have high cholesterol, okay? And your valves are clogged, your arteries are clogged with unhealthy things, and you're at the apex of the campaign. You're fighting the big bad, and you are about to layeth the sword or whatever weapon or item or relic to destroy this evil that is plaguing this realm or world or plane of existence, and your character dies from a heart attack, failing to save the world and letting down your party for your unhealthy decision.
How? I, I cannot describe. You're not out of left field. You're not in the ballpark. You're not even the same city. Where did this come from? How did you pull this out for a D list?
It's like a completely made up thing, RP stuff, and obviously homebrew if you're having a heart disease in your campaign.
Amazing.
I think if I was a DM, I would allow this if that player consistently through the campaign made their character overeat for every meal.
Oh my gosh.
If the player made a point of RPing and saying, my character stuffs his face with whatever's the most unhealthiest food at this inn, at every inn you go to, I might be like, okay. Roll for heart attack.
I was in a weird mood when I came up with this one, and I was like, you know what? Why not?
Did you just happen to be eating a big greasy cheeseburger when you thought of it? Or this is really bad for me. What if my character died like this?
I was very full.
So you overate and you projected your failures onto your top 5 list.
I was just saying, like, that never happens. No one, but that's the worst way to die is a heart attack when you're about to save the world.
What's the DC save on heart disease?
How unhealthy was your character?
Oh my god.
We can homebrew this. We'll make a chart and we'll incorporate it in campaign.
Yeah, and it's like, well, is there a history of heart disease in your family? Because you got to have that, in consideration. Maybe the DC's, a lot higher or lower. This is so silly.
I mean, obviously, you get disadvantage on the save at that point.
Yeah, I mean, your character could be a caster that just hangs in the back and doesn't move much in battle. They ride a horse wherever they go, so they don't walk.
It's like a Wall-E situation. They just stuff their face and ride around and have someone pull them around in a cart.
Could be a nobleman background, so you have retainers bringing you food all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Man. My number 1. I'm bringing us back down, not to Earth.
I'll do a redemption one.
I'm bringing us back to fantasy reality. My number 1 top 5 best worst ways to die in D&D, and I will say that it has appeared in this list already from one of my fellow compatriots. My number 1, gelatinous cube. It's a classic. It is, I think, quite frankly, an very embarrassing way for your character to die. And here's why. A gelatinous cube can only move 15 feet. So anyone can outrun them. I know they're hard to see, but come on. And then the DC to get out of their engulf is like a DC 12 for Dex. So yeah, getting slowly dissolved by a gelatinous cube is not only classic, but also my best worst ways to die in D&D, because it says in the book that you just get dissolved slowly, so you're just in the ooze and resigned to your fate.
Yeah, I was debating putting that one higher on my list, but then I read about my number 1.
I will say too that if you die to a gelatinous cube, if you miss the dex save, you would have to miss a strength save on every single one of your turns to get dissolved by this thing.
It's because the character's having a heart attack. They get a disadvantage.
God. Maybe the gelatinous cube will have a heart attack from eating such a hearty adventurer.
It might. It just may.
It just inherits their cholesterol. All right, VS, what's your number 1?
Something that looks like it wouldn't be terrifying, but mechanically it is. Um, Death by Intellect Devour.
Yeah.
This one is terrifying. So if you've all played D&D or anything D&D related, you're probably aware of what an Intellect Devourer is. Small creature shaped like a brain.
Little
Can live
brain
in,
puppy.
yeah, and can live in a host's skull. But this thing has a very nasty attack. Attack? I don't know if it's an attack
Yeah.
or just an ability.
Action, yeah.
Called Devour Intellect. This is when the Intellect Devourer, one creature that can see, force that target to make a DC 14 Intelligence saving throw. And if they fail, they take 2d8 psychic damage. And while it has its intellect drained, it has disadvantage on all intelligence checks and saving throws until it completes a long rest. Also, it can drop your character's potential intelligence to 0, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
If they fail the roll, you roll 3d6, and that's how much their intelligence goes down, is reduced
Yeah.
to.
So your character could be in a fight and then via bad rolls against this thing just turn into a literal vegetable. And that's it. You're gone. And then it can steal your body and live in your body.
So the
That's great.
only way to protect yourself from an intellect devourer is be really smart. Because if you have a 19 intelligence, they can never take all of it.
Yeah, it's a pretty nasty little thing. And yeah, just that it has to be my number one. It's kind of, in a way, it sounds a little similar to the, what is it, the Vorguil?
Yeah, the Vargwheel.
Only like a different way of doing it. Where that reduces your charisma, this reduces your intelligence. So pretty nasty overall.
What's even worse is that if it doesn't reduce your intelligence to 0, it says you're still stunned until you regain a point of intelligence. Which you pretty much...
You can't do unless someone does it for you.
You have to go to bed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's why I didn't put Gelatinous Cube higher. Because that one sucks. This one's just frightening.
Yeah. That's a solid number one. If just you're not smart enough and it just eats your whole brain. Num. Kobe, thank you for the follow.
And visual fallacy.
Welcome in.
Yeah.
What up? What up?
That's it. That's my list.
I think it's a pretty solid list.
Those are good lists.
Your number one's wild. I want to know, and Zeus wants to know as well. What was your backup number one compared to your character dying of heart disease?
My backup number one is and this spell has a lot of applications that can be used. Another spell, and it's called Wall of Force. And the spell itself is not, I guess it can be the reason why I did, but it doesn't, when you hear Wall of Force, like, oh, I died from Wall of Force. It becomes a situational thing where, like, for example, you are escaping, and this could have happened in, I don't say it could have happened, but very well happened in campaign 1. But if you're trying to, Indiana Jones situation, you're outrunning a boulder, and you're going through a corridor, and the evil wizard throws up a wall of force, which you slam into, and the boulder just smashes into you and the party. There's nothing you can do about it.
I didn't even think of these wild situations.
Should we do each of us do one honorable mention? Something that didn't quite make it to the list?
Yeah.
Do you have one?
I guess that was Moobs's. I had one that I debated between it and heat metal, and I ultimately chose heat metal. But my honorable mention was going to be the spell suggestion. Because as long as you make the request reasonable, they have to follow it. So I thought it was a little too open-ended for this, but it could be potentially, awful of someone making a request that your character seems reasonable and then having to do something that ends up making them get killed. Panda Way, thank you for the follow.
Hello, welcome.
Mine is just kind of like a common scenario, but can have potential dire consequences for an entire party, and that is like dying to traps.
Yeah.
Any kind of traps. Could be gas filling up a chamber. It could be getting crushed, having a blade fall on you, getting blown up. I for as common as traps can be in campaigns, they're nothing to sneeze at. They're actually traps are kind of terrifying because they have the potential to just wreck your whole party. So
Yeah.
I think that's
It's classic.
Yep.
I'm
Well,
actually surprised no one picked Mind Flayer.
Hey, mine was in the ballpark.
Yeah, yours definitely was
It's
in the
like
ballpark.
same deal. And then getting your head turned into a little guy is probably worse than getting your brain sucked out by a Mind Flayer. But yeah, pretty good.
I thought about it, but I was like, nah, that's not going to be on my top 5.
I don't have a ton of like, I guess, breadth of knowledge in terms of what creatures there are or what effects there are. So I'm sure there's some crazy like planar creatures that can do some weird stuff to you. I thought about looking into that, but I was like, eh.
I think it's a solid list. There's
tossed.
definitely some things that were very wild.
Yeah.
Gotta spice it up, gotta keep everyone on their toes.
Oh man.
Yeah, but let us know what your top 5s are. Come join our Discord, come hang out with us, let us know what your top 5s are. It's over at discord.gg/casters and cantrips. Or you could just let us know if you're watching this video later on, put it in the comments, or if you're listening on our podcasts, which are on every podcast platform that I'm allowed to put it on. They're out there. So, the last but not least, go check us out on YouTube. We're actually there right now, or we were right then if you're listening to us in the future. Well, that being said, thanks for hanging out with us. We have our campaign 2 episode 36 on Friday at 6 p.m. It's going to be wild if you've been following along. If you haven't been following along, get to it. It's wild. Some things happened.
Oh my God. Last episode. If you haven't watched it, you should definitely catch up.
Yeah. And with that being said, on Thursday is when our Out of Combat episode drops for that. Out of Combat's our little after show. Where we talk about the previous episode, and then this one, I believe it was VS and Moobs and Bun. We're all talking about the previous episode. It's a good one too. So if you want to check that out on Thursday, it'll drop at noon. But anyway, thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.